thrilled to be introducing my friend Mark Mann here, who will be sharing some of his work as a photographer with you, talking through, I guess, some of the backstory behind these photos. Mark is a phenomenal photographer working on incredible projects, and well, I'll let him introduce himself with his own work. So, round of applause, please, for Mark Mann.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, give me a heads up, because I'll talk forever. If I see anybody sleeping, I'll know it's all over. Hi everyone, I'm Mark. I'm a Mark Mann. I'm a photographer, and I'm a friend of Maxim. And Maxim inspires me very, very much because he talks about creativity. Now, to be brutally honest, as a photographer and starting out as a photographer, creativity was what? What is this creativity? And it's something I've struggled with from the day I picked up a camera and before until now, until tomorrow, until the next day. I didn't realize that, when I was a kid and, one of the first toys I got was that one that you put the blocks in, and the circle one happened to fit in the square one, but it wasn't right. And people told me it was wrong. But it's not wrong, it fits, it's right. So my mom, and it kind of reminds me of these things all the time. Now, obviously, I was not great at school because of this in any way, shape, or form. And I had no concept at that time that this may be different thinking, creative thinking. It was just Mark's thinking. And although it has served me well in later life, it was an absolute nightmare when I was a kid. And I'm seeing some of it in my kid right now as well. And I'm like, wow, you're in for it, child. But, and then, thank you so much. And then I think what happens is, like, I get to college and I'm like, oh, I'm a creative photographer. And I'm making all these beautiful art images and oh, wow. And smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and shit. And then you kind of leave and you've got, for me, I had this book of creative work, which I thought was obviously just creative. And, I went into an ad agency back in Glasgow and they said, oh, that's great, son, but can you photograph couches? Yeah, if you pay me. So, I spent a year photographing furniture. And as much as I talked to that furniture and tried to build some kind of rapport with it, wasn't happening. And I realized super, super quickly that you can be as creative as you can be, but when you're dealing with a client, forget it. They only want... Have I done something wrong?
No. It was me. It's not you.
Are you giving me a testicle?
No. Okay, let's try that. So.
Is that better? What are we trying?
Just try to get the ringing out a little bit. No, it's all good.
Okay. So that's the next problem that I've found, and that's where I'm struggling right now, I suppose, with creativity, is that I can be incredibly creative, but the bottom line is nobody really wants it, right? I watch a lot of these ads on television that are just like, who approved that? Who thought that was good? What were the creatives thinking? And now I realize that the creatives came up with this incredible ad, right? Mind-blowing. And they showed it to the client. And the client was like, yeah, I don't know if our people... So then they show it to the lawyer. And the lawyer's like, oh, we can't say that word. And then they show it to a couple of people that work in the copying department, and they're I don't know. And then they show it to and then by the time that this ad gets back to be on television, it's nothing. It's just sanitized. So that's my struggle with creativity at the moment. So I think the only way I've managed to blend my creativity and what my client wants is by offering them my creativity, understanding if it's a commercial gig that they're going to say, no, we don't, we want this. But I found that my work is most creative when I'm left to do what I want to do. And luckily over the last decade or decade and a half, I've got to do a lot of these celebrity portraits where it's just like, Mark, do your thing. Now this is neatly balanced out every year by some pharmaceutical jobs where basically I don't know why I'm there, because I've just gone like this and there's nothing that I've done or suggested that is making any difference to the photograph I'm taking. But you know what, if you want to pay me for it, I'll click all day. I'll tell jokes, you know. So this is my constant struggle with creativity within my work field. The other thing I'm going to say about that as well is that, you know, when we talk about creativity, or when I think of creativity, I don't want to talk for anyone else. I think about the art and the arts and making and doing, and you know, AR, VR, photography, everything like that. But I have a business partner who is the most visually inept human being on earth. I mean, you show him something, he's like, I don't know, is it good, is it bad? I don't know, it's photos, it's text on it, whatever. But let me tell you, financially, he's incredibly creative. And that's why we work well together. So I think it's really important for me to see that there's creativity in all fields of how we work. And I think that's really, really important. And to my, you know, my fault, it's something I didn't really realize. You know, I go to my doctor and he's creative about my blood pressure medicine, or at least he's creative on how he sells it to me. So, you know, I think creativity is so out there, and I think that as much as we can use it, we should use it. But anyway, let's get on to talking about some photos. I've had this amazing opportunity to photograph a lot of celebrities. I'm not sure why, how that happened in the beginning. But with all things, once you've done it for a while and people see that what you're doing is kind of reasonable, they kind of go, all right, get him, he's not going to mess it up. So, you know, this. But I brought out a couple here that are my favorite. And just one thing I want to say, when all's said and done, I am not a deeply technical photographer. I understand photography, I understand what light does, I understand what happens when it hits the sensor to a little bit, kind of. Light does the what? But I also understand a little bit of color. But you know what I've really learned to understand, and where I've really put my creative energy in, is creating this authentic moment between a photographer and his subject. And this is, I think, the one thing that so many people miss when they make photographs. I follow this German photographer on Instagram, and he is by far the most creative, take that back. He by far is the most proficient technician of a camera and of of Photoshop that I've ever seen in following anyone. His images are astounding, but they are completely missing humanity. And I've talked to this guy over Zoom a few times, and I see where it's coming from. You know, he's an admirer of my work, and I'm a great admirer of his work, but he's just missing that little bit of humanity. And I think that humanity is the creativity, because technically, yeah, you can all learn what f-stop to use, why it's right, why it's wrong, what light does, whatever. But where the creativity really comes in for me, I'm probably repeating myself, is this humanity between two subjects. So, you know, let's go back to Danny. Danny, stay normal size. So what I love about this photo is, you know, it's always this great expectation when somebody comes in a room, you know, oh, Danny DeVito's coming in, and he comes in, and I shake his hand, and I go, hey, Mr. DeVito, nice to meet you. He goes, nice to meet you. I said, can I get you in? And you want a coffee, Diet Coke, something like that? He says, I'll take a Diet Coke. So, you know, being Mark, I walk over, I go to the fridge, I bring a Diet Coke, open it, put a straw in it, and hand it to him. But he doesn't take it. He just leans over, sips, goes, thank you. And I'm, oh, okay. But what I do and what I had done with Danny DeVito is to try and find something that maybe puts us on a level of, hey, you know, I know you're Danny DeVito and I'm Mark Mann and you're Danny DeVito, but you know, we all do things. So what I found very interesting was he just started this Instagram site about troll feet. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but he photographs his feet, which are really disgusting, in like all weird different places around New York or wherever he is. It's called troll feet. When it first started, nobody knew it was him, and then so I asked him about it, and I asked him if I could photograph his feet. I said, Mr. DeVito, do you mind if we just photograph your feet, not your face today? Like, yeah, and he just gave me that look, and I snapped that photo, and I thought, wow, I made a connection with this human, and you know, experience and some help, made the light right. It's not sharp because I'm terrible at focus, even with autofocus, but it doesn't matter. There's a connection there, and that to me is what makes a portrait. And this is where I'm really trying in everything I do to use my creativity, is how do I talk to this person. I'm going to show you some more photos because I feel I've been talking too long. So the same, like, you know, I have stories for every one of these. Like Pacino, for instance, you know, I'm not going to tell you a story about Pacino, but it was, again, you can see there's something going on between me and him. I've said something that's made him react, and everything I say has come from a place of where I've been, how creative can I be in this conversation to not piss the guy off, not be a dick, but just say something that is going to intrigue them, get their attention as well. This photo's in here because it's a fail. It's Jennifer Aniston. I made a fortune from this photograph. So, well, fortune, I mean, you know, paid for lunch in New York. But she sat down and she was the most charming, wonderful, lovely human being ever. And I'm chatting to her, and I've got my camera here. And as soon as I put my camera here, she goes, Jen Aniston. And I'm like, wow, that's very Jen Aniston. She's like, And no matter how hard I pushed to get something from her, rather than couldn't get it, total failure. And then one of her assistants laughed at something that I said to her, and she looked up at her assistant and gave her that smile, and I took a photo. So although it's a fine photo and it does everything it's not to do, for me that's a failure, because when I look back on it, I know that I didn't succeed with that photograph to make it happen, if that makes sense. Anyway, this one I did succeed. I mean, I melted. I'm like, oh, can you stop doing that? I can't, you know, seriously, stop looking at me like that. I can't. And, you know, made her laugh and whatever, and this is a photo. Once again, you know, doing the Mark clown show and you know, making people laugh or getting them to think or whatever. You know, I don't know why that's so big. Oh, there we go. That was funny. It's a very big photograph of a very small man. He's brilliant, by the way, but you know, I love this photo, and honestly, once again, this is more the creativity and lighting in the situation rather than the personality, but I do like that photo, but it's not what I'm talking about.
Is that outside? Is that outside or?
You know what's, how much time don't I have?
You do 5.
Alright, super quick. I get a phone call in the afternoon that they needed pictures of Peter Dinklage, an HBO showing of something. Could I take the photo? Can you come over and do it? Peter knows you. Can you just come knock it out? It's for HBO for something. I was like, yeah, okay. Grabbed some gear, went up there with an assistant, and it was in a theater where he was about to do a talk. And the problem was there was no space in the theater. All there was a window against the West Side Highway, and a corridor, and it was supposed to be daylight, and because I didn't have any lights with me. And it was late, he got later and later and later, and eventually managed to take this photo. And if you saw the real photo, his face is very dark. So there's been a lot of post-processing on that. But anyway, he's a very nice man. If I had time, I could tell you some really funny Peter Dinklage stories. And if I ever talk to you again, please remind me, because I'm the best. Ethan Hawke's really interesting, and once again, I feel I've made a connection there. Antonio. So he walks into the studio, and he has got the best swagger of any human I've ever seen. He's literally 3 foot to either side. He walks in, and he comes up to me, I'm holding a camera, he goes, "I'm Antonio." I know. And I get such a kick out of it to this day. You know, it doesn't matter how many of these I do, just get such a kick. But once again, this was kind of interesting because we were having this joke about my wife. I can't do the accent. My wife costs me so much money. Never get divorced. If you do get divorced, do this and do this and do this. And we were having this conversation. I was like, my wife still likes me. I don't. Anyway. But then he told me that he had been sick and he had a heart attack. And we started talking about that. So I've got all these great photos before this about kind of laughing and, you know, the hands and whatever. But that one, when he told me he was sick, and we were talking about it seriously, that seemed to be, that seemed to resonate with me more. Bourdain is one of my favorite subjects I've ever photographed. You know, sadly, after taking pictures for 30 years, I feel like a lot of people I've photographed are dead. It's really strange. And, you know, I don't post so much, but when somebody I photographed dies, I usually post it. And somebody reached out to me the other day and said, do you only photograph people that die? I don't know if I want you to take my picture. But Bourdain was another one. I mean, I photographed him 3 or 4 times. The first couple of times, I got nothing. And at the end of the second time I photographed him, I said, hey, Anthony, next time I photograph you, I'm going to make you smile. He was like, yeah. So he sat down and he looked at the camera, and he looked into the camera, and I said, you got a smile for me this time, Mr. B? He's like, fuck off, Mark. And that is exactly that picture. So once again, it's about the humanity and making a connection. And it's really hard with people. I practice all the time on whoever I talk to. I go in and buy a pack of chips and a Coke at the deli. I'm talking to that person. Hey, how's your day going? They're like, what? Like, you doing all right? You busy? Lots of potato chips today? And you just see this reactions like nobody talks to people anymore. And I think that is where right now my creativity is. I'm just gonna finish up. I'm going to show you guys one picture, which I'm not actually supposed to show you, because it's a long story why. Even if I can find one. Alright, I'm going to just bear with me and pretend that you're not seeing my screen. I gotta have one somewhere. Sorry, 2 minutes. I'm so dyslexic, man, I can't even get the J. The JPEGs, A, B, C, D, E, F. There we are. Throw one there. Loop. Let's just go to Dennis Project. I have no idea what. No, that's not the picture I want to show you. That's a bad choice. Oh, okay. No, that's a bad choice as well. Ignore this picture. I was going to ask you to sign in. It's too much hassle. But what I wanted to finish with is, you know, I've been doing this for so long, and I've always thought to myself, there's nothing to learn, there's nothing to change. I just got to get better at what I do. And during the pandemic, I couldn't do what I did. I couldn't be in people's faces anymore. I had a friend, my sister-in-law is a choreographer, and we got a load of her dancers together, and I started to shoot these dancers. And I started to shoot them at 30 feet away because that was pandemic safe, where they would dance and I would shoot. And what happened to me was I realized that if I gave them space to do what they did, to perform, then I became a very different kind of photographer. I became a photographer that was watching and capturing instead of making it happen. And I've never done that before. And I'm not trying to sell anything, but I've got a book coming out. I've been doing this for 30 years. Nobody's ever asked me to do a book. I mean, I've photographed everyone in the world, but after like 2 weeks of doing this, I got a book contract. And the reason I'm just saying this is at the end is whenever you're stifled, just throw it somewhere else. And for me, that has been a major, major, major change. It has taught me a really valid lesson that I can always learn about what I do. I can always practice, and making changes and going different directions are part of the process. Wow, that actually summed up pretty nicely, didn't it? I'm usually told to stop talking. Anybody any questions? Excellent. See you later. No, but for real. Yes.
What's the title of your book and when does it come out?
It's ready. It's called Movement at the Still Point, an ode to dance, and it features 140 New York City dancers from Misty Copeland to Chira Rivera to Sarah Mearns to all the big names across all of the disciplines, and it's being published by Rizzoli, and it comes out in March. But I can't even show it to you. I was going to show you a couple of pictures, but I can't find them. That's God giving me a little message there. Yes, yes.
Who is it that you wish you'd had a chance to photograph?
Bowie,
Thank you.
without a doubt. Nobody else so far. Well, Caesar, maybe that would have been fun. Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the framing of your shots, and it seems like you have a kind of center frame, and the other one extreme, like on one side or the other. Do you? What's your approach to that framing of, when you decide this is a center frame shot and one where you shoot with the face to the left or the right?
It's such a great question. I'm going to answer it in a really bad way, and I apologize in advance. I don't, when you do something, when you've been doing something for 30 years, I've never explored why I do that. I've been asked a lot in the last few years, why do you do this? Why do you shoot type? Why do you like this? But the composition, I don't know why I do that. I should probably explore it. The problem I have that is when I really try and work out the process of what I've been doing, I lose it, right? Oh, I've got to do this because that's what I told these people I did. So I'm not sure. I think.
I have an editor who he just says, get the wide master shot, we'll fix it up in post. Which is we want to zoom in.
Yeah, I never do that.
I'm going to take the zoom now and get the shot the way I want it. And I don't want to have to do this in post. And I got a 6-to-1 on an Apple, but
I was going to say that maybe it comes a bit from the magazine days where you were always thinking about spreads and gutters. So, I'm not going to put the person in the middle of the shot because that will be in the gutter. Maybe that is the training for it. But you're right. If I shoot wide, then I don't get the quality of the lens. If I'm shooting wide open, sorry to get technical, folks. If I'm shooting wide open and I'm far back, what's the point of shooting wide open? Because it's all going to be sharp. So this is it. Until they pay you more money and you say, I'll do whatever you want. How far back would you like me to be, sir? Anything else? Yes. I took a photograph of my kid in the bath last night. And I'm saying that not to be a dick, but usually the most recent photographs I've taken are the ones I'm thinking about. I think for experience, for like, oh my God, what just happened? Going to the White House to shoot Obama was definitely there. Robin Williams is definitely there. Bill Murray is definitely there. Jane Fonda actually made a big impression on me. It's kind of weird, and I had to retouch her. It was a nightmare. God. Got two little things here. She just turns and her whole face gets brighter. But I think honestly, like last night, 2 photographs. So I gotta stop, right?
30 seconds.
Okay. So super quick, like
25.
what I was saying about like this new thing of doing is like capturing what other people have created. So I've started carrying out a little camera, which I've never done in my life. I've never had that. It's like when I go to take photographs, I go to take photographs. I'm not looking around New York City to take photographs. But this dancer thing inspired me to be different. So yesterday, I'm walking down the street, I see a dead rat right in the middle of right in the middle of the pavement of 47th Street. And I stood there for 10 minutes just photographing people's reactions to it. And I got a photograph. It's like, wow, I'm a street photographer. It's like, I've never stood there waiting for like, oh, let's see what happens with the light when this happens. It's not me. But all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, I see where that's coming from. So I think in my head it's usually the last couple of pictures I took. And my kid was in the bath last night. He was being particularly amusing. And I think that's the picture that's in my head. And I'm like, oh, how can I do a book of my kid in the bath photos? That's it.
We better wind up, but thank you very, very much.